Welcome back, everyone, to the South End Zone. I am Chad. You see Tyler right there. Tyler, you guys get to bask in the glory of being back on top of the SEC because you knocked off the Texas Longhorns. But it's time for our Week 9 preview because you're not on top of the SEC. These two teams are on the top of the SEC. LSU goes into College Station for a 6:30 p.m. kickoff against Texas A&M for SEC supremacy. The winner of this game remains undefeated in the conference. LSU has that early loss to USC. A&M has that early loss to Notre Dame. But both of these teams are undefeated in the SEC. I don't think anybody saw this coming, where this was going to be the matchup for the pole position going into the stretch run for a seat in Atlanta. And that's where we are. That just happens to be where we are. A&M still has a lot of work to do after this game. LSU still has a lot of work to do after this game. But this game right now is one of the premier matchups that we've had all year. And this is a big rivalry. Goes back a long way. And Kyle Field is a tough place to play, especially at night. Some crazy things have happened. But the one thing I will say is that one of my biggest concerns about this game coming into this season was the placement of this game, where it was relative to everything else, because I knew we had that Ole Miss game, and then we were going to have that Arkansas, Texas A&M. Like, Arkansas is a potential letdown after if we happen to knock off Ole Miss, or as like a potential kick them while they're down if we had lost to Ole Miss, because Fayetteville's a tough place to play. And then College Station, Kyle Field, even though we have a bye after this game, just looking ahead to Alabama coming into Baton Rouge in a couple of weeks, this one concerned me. Now my concerns are completely different, dude. Like, I'm looking at this like, well, Texas A&M is not just like an upset candidate. Texas A&M is actually pretty good.
Yeah, and they're favored.
And now we've got they're favored by 3. Like, now we've got to go in there and like come correct. So in a way, I'm like, the concern is more of, okay, you better go get the job done, because this is a quality opponent and this would be a huge win. Whereas before it was more of like a fear of a letdown, a fear of like letting somebody sneak up and get you.
Yeah.
So I much prefer this, because the reality of the matter is that while the winner of this game is in a really good position to go to Atlanta, really good position to earn a spot in the college football playoff, number one, that's not guaranteed, because there's still, like I said, there's a lot of work to do after that. Texas A&M still has Texas left on the schedule. They've got a couple other tough matchups. LSU has Alabama, Florida in the swamp, Oklahoma. Like, there's still plenty of landmines ahead for LSU as well. So, but what does jump out to me, though, is that like the loser of this game is not necessarily done either. Oh, Texas A&M, do they have you guys?
Nope.
No, Ole Miss has you guys.
I was gonna say, I don't think so.
Let's pull it up, because I
say,
remember they had more than just the one tough matchup.
They play Tennessee, Florida, Ole Miss, and Georgia Tech, and a crappy team.
Oh, they've got South Carolina at Columbia, and then they've got Auburn in Auburn, and then they've got Texas in College Station. So they've got a home game with Texas to close out the season, but they've got a couple of tough road games after this one. So Texas A&M still has their work cut out for them as well, but they also have some opportunities if they were to lose this game to LSU, but then run the table the rest of the way and actually beat Texas. You could see a rematch of these two teams in Atlanta, which would be just crazy. Like,
oh my God,
who had LSU Texas A&M
for the SEC
in Atlanta before
Nobody.
the season? Nobody. But who had Vanderbilt in the top 25?
Well, they're ranked.
Like, that's what's going on. That's what's going on. We have 9 SEC teams in the top 25 right now, Tyler.
Listen, can we just
9 SEC teams?
Quick round of applause for Vanderbilt Commodores. Quick round of applause.
That's right. Right. Yes, I'm surprised they didn't give me fireworks or anything for the emojis. But yeah, Texas goes into Vanderbilt, and look, I think people continue to just sleep on Vanderbilt.
Dude.
Alabama is being exposed as not being as good as everybody thought they were. This is a team that, coming off of blowing a 28-point lead to you guys, they immediately got launched into the number 1 spot by everyone. Everyone put them, they were like, oh, no, Alabama's the best team in the country. Ryan Williams is insane. Jalen Milrose is incredible. Blah, 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 blah. Overlook everything else. All of the warning signs that we tried to point out to people that they completely ignored. We were not ignoring them. Everyone else was. So then Alabama almost loses to South Carolina as well. They lose to Tennessee this weekend after they coughed up that game on the road at Vanderbilt. Well, I think that's doing Vanderbilt a disservice because that doesn't mean that Vanderbilt is not still a really good, high quality team and that they're not going to have the same sort of giant hunter mentality when Texas comes in to Nashville as they did against Alabama. 18.5-point favorites. That's a lot. Vanderbilt plays the type of offense that, look what they did against Alabama. Held the ball for like 40 minutes.
Right, dude.
Texas might not have the ball enough to score 18.5 points, let
That's what
alone
I'm
win by
saying,
18.5.
right?
You know what I'm saying? So we'll see. This one's going to be very, very interesting, but like the parity is insane in this
Dude,
conference and across college football, really.
it's unbelievable. This is one of the in my not so long memory. This is the best year of college football, like regular season wise, and
Yeah.
all these games and the parity and you really got to win it every week. There's no weeks off. Like Texas, you got to go to Nashville. You got to get it done, man. Like there's no off weeks whatsoever. Like I just think it's awesome. I think this just further cements how great it's going to be when we have to decide a 12-team playoff. I mean, all these games matter every week, day in and day out, and I think that's great for the sport. I just think right now, dude, it's like the highs of college football, and then you go to the NFL every Sunday, and you're just kind of like, eh. You know what I mean? It's like that's where I kind of am right now. College football is the best right now. There's nothing better.
Shout out to all the people who chiseled Vanderbilt in their schedule before the season as a W. They chiseled that W in that column and just were like when they're doing their predictions for how many games their team was going to win this year, that was one of the ones that they guaranteed. They're like, yes, Youngstown State, yes, win. Marshall, win. Vanderbilt, win. Oh shit. What? Like Alabama put like Mercer, Western Kentucky, and Vanderbilt were all wins in their book, and I don't know. It's Vanderbilt is no slouch. Diego Pavia and Clark Lee has that team playing a way that I don't know. I don't know what to expect. Ball State gave them hell this past weekend, but I think you can give them look, they're human beings too. Yes, they go to a nerd school, but they can overlook a Ball State when they've got Texas coming into town.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? So let's give them a little bit of a breather. It happens. Not everyone is immune to that stuff. Missouri is going to go to Tuscaloosa, and Tyler, we were talking about this before. It's 14-point favorite for Alabama. I think this makes sense. This spread makes sense. Alabama should probably beat them by 3 or 4 touchdowns the way that Missouri has been playing this year. But we have finally entered into the realm of this is how I know that Alabama has the mid has come in and settled in for this franchise, this program. I don't know that Missouri doesn't go beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa this
They
weekend.
might just listen. I don't they might cover. I could see it being as opposed to 2 touchdowns, it'd be a touchdown and a field goal for Alabama to win this game. I don't know. I think that anything is possible right now, and Tuscaloosa is becoming not that hard of a place to play anymore. Slowly but surely, which is crazy to say, but if they can walk into Tuscaloosa and win, then anybody can, and that's.
I've told you. Yeah, I've told you. Well, no, Vandy, they won in Nashville.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was in Nashville.
We almost won in Tuscaloosa.
But South Carolina almost beat them in Tuscaloosa.
That's what I was.
And I will say this: I've told you for a long time. LSU has typically played Alabama better there than in Baton Rouge. We have more wins in Tuscaloosa and Birmingham than we do in Baton Rouge in the last 4 years. which is wild, which is insane, but it is what it is. Our home record is worse than our road record against Alabama. And I think some of it is because it's not the same type of atmosphere that it is in Death Valley, Sanford Stadium. Like there's some of these places where you go to the Swamp, Kyle Field, even like there's some places where you go and it's just like you can be down by 2 touchdowns and the fans are still going crazy. Like we were playing an ugly game 2 weeks ago against Ole Miss, and Tiger Stadium was still rocking, down by 10 points. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about. Down 10-0. Offense has done jack all game long. You should be down 30-0. You feel like there's no hope, and the crowd is still going nuts. Alabama's not like that. Like they are very big on when they're winning, they're all like gung ho and everything's great, but they get nervous and it's very palpable. Um, and the other thing is too, you have 2 things going on here that I think make this an interesting matchup. Number one, does Missouri finally get it together, and is this their Super Bowl for this season? They still only have one loss. That loss to Texas A&M. That's
Bad
and
loss.
now a bad one, yes. But now that you look back at it, and remember, I told you about that game. Like there were a few plays where an early pass interference that they pick up the flag that would have set Missouri up in prime scoring position to take to score the first points of the game. Then later they're down 10-0. Luther Burden scores a 75-yard touchdown. Somebody was lined up off the line of scrimmage, so they bring it back. And there are a couple of plays like that where it went from it could have been a tie game or Missouri has a small lead early second quarter to Texas A&M's up by 3 touchdowns, and that was it. It was over. So I don't know that Missouri is as bad as they have looked. And they have enough talent on that roster,
Right.
and Eli Drinkwitz is a good enough coach that you prop this up as like we're still in it, and this is if we want to make the playoff, if we want to have a chance, we have to win this game. We've got to go get this pelt and hang it on the wall. And Alabama right now could be entering into dumpster fire territory because I don't know what the mood is in that locker room. I know that there was already in the Vanderbilt game. Did you see Malachi Moore like kick the ball?
Yeah.
And like there's some weird stuff going on
No, they're not
that
bought
would
in.
never huh?
I don't find them as bought. I don't know if it's that they're not bought in, but there's
Bought
something like
in,
you
yeah.
said. There's something weird where like they just like it's like they're like arguing with each other or they're pissed at the coaches. I don't know. It's weird right now.
Yeah.
Like stuff that Saban would never and you would never ever in a million years see any. Well, at least I know it. See a player kind of protest against Nick Saban or try to
and so
talk back to Nick Saban or any of his coaching staff.
right. And so you saw at the end of the South Carolina game when they actually found a way to get it done. They stopped them for the 2-point conversion. They got the ball back after, the interception late in the game. They kind of came together. It's easy to come together when you get a win like that, an emotional victory.
Yeah.
Everybody can still kind of be cool with each other, and it covers up your weaknesses and your flaws, right? This loss to Tennessee, Jalen Milroe throws a few picks. Dudes are dropping balls. People are fumbling the ball. Dudes are getting beat up front. Dudes are getting beat in the secondary. The finger pointing starts to come, and it doesn't just land on the players, but like the coach is under a lot of scrutiny, under a lot of fire. It's natural, when you step into that role, that those are impossible shoes to fill. I don't care who
Literally.
you are.
Didn't
You are
matter who it
not
was going to
filling
be.
those shoes. And that stress, that pressure is going to reveal the cracks. And what I'm concerned about for Alabama anyway is that I'm not concerned because I'm really happy. But what they should be concerned about is that this is the beginning of what could be like a collapse, because we are literally looking at this Missouri game. And be honest, Alabama fans, be honest with yourselves and be honest with us. When you look at number 21 Missouri, as bad as they've played coming into Tuscaloosa, and you're favored by 2 touchdowns, in your heart of hearts, do you really feel comfortable? Do you really feel confident? Do you really feel like you're going to win that game? Or do you feel just the same as I felt this weekend going into Fayetteville to go play Arkansas, who's not that good, even though we beat them like a drum? Like, I was a little nervous going into that game because this is a team that, like, they come to play, they come to fight. And Missouri's kind of the same way if they can get it together.
They have
They're
the
not a
talent
big
to do
rival of
so.
yours, but Alabama is so vulnerable right now that I don't know that they should feel safe against anybody. And if we're trying to figure out like what this path is going to look like for them as this season goes on, they've got Missouri and Tuscaloosa. They come to Baton Rouge to play LSU. Then they go to Norman to play Oklahoma. And then they've got Auburn in the Iron Bowl in Tuscaloosa. Like, if this is any other year, I'm looking at that and I'm like, the only one they really have to worry about is LSU and Baton Rouge.
Yep.
And maybe the Iron Bowl, because Saban, even when
It's
he's
every
good
year.
and Auburn's bad, it's just
That's every year.
they have a way of finding a way to like just come up and grab you by the ankles.
Yeah.
This year, I don't know. Like, I think they could lose all 4 of those games. I'm not saying they're going to lose all 4,
But the
and
fact
that
that it's
I'm
on the
saying that I
table,
feel like
it's
I'm
on the
saying like
table.
every one of those could be a loss.
Right. It's on the
And
table.
so them losing 2 out of those 4 is not out of the realm of possibility at all.
Yeah. It's
Losing
on
the
the
Iron
table.
Bowl, losing in Baton Rouge, or losing in Norman and losing in Baton Rouge, or some combination of whatever. Or in this Missouri game right here, if they don't win this game, they're in deep trouble.
Yep.
Like the deepest of trouble. Right now, they're still on the fringe of playoff contention, where if they run the table, they could get themselves back into the conversation. But they're in deep doo doo if they don't win this one and win it pretty convincingly.
Yep.
Oklahoma, Ole Miss. I feel kind of the same way about Ole Miss at this point as I do about Alabama. This team was built through the transfer portal to
Yeah.
supplement what was a really good roster the last couple of years, and they were about to start printing national championship T-shirts. Like they thought this was their year, and they already have 2 losses, and
Yeah.
it's only just begun. And Oklahoma's not good, but that doesn't mean
No.
that if a mutiny has begun
Yeah.
in Lane Kiffin's locker room, that some of these dudes, what if Trey Harris doesn't play? That's a
Yeah.
drastically worse
Big
offense
difference.
without him.
Big difference.
It's a huge difference. What if Walter Nolan is just like, yeah, fuck this. I'm not with this anymore. Like I don't know. It's a home game. They should win.
I was
They're
gonna say
favored
they
by 3
should win.
touchdowns.
I
They
think
should win.
if Ole Miss can play the way Ole Miss should, they should beat the brakes off Oklahoma. Oklahoma
Mhm.
is really bad, like bad. They are
Bad.
not good. They are bad. So
Yeah.
realistically, I think that
They're so bad they put Jackson Arnold back in.
exactly. Like I think realistically, like if Ole Miss can play the way Ole Miss does, and they decide to come together, and they're not down and out. I hope they're not thinking that way. Like they could still find themselves maybe in like that 10 to 11 spot in the playoff,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
But I think that they should wax Oklahoma. Oklahoma might make it a little bit crazier, but I think this is a W for Ole Miss for sure.
What you said just like reminded me of how crazy this is. So I just want to pull this up because this is actually wild. If you look at the standings right now, there is a very good chance that watch how far I have to scroll to get to Ole Miss. They're right there with Oklahoma.
Right.
They're at 1 and 2. You have to get Texas A&M off the screen to get Ole Miss on the screen. They're currently, what is that? 5, 10. They're 12th in the SEC right now.
That's gross. Well, maybe
Ole Miss.
maybe there is a mutiny in the locker room. I don't know.
So listen, but here's what I was getting at though. If I told you before the season started that Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Alabama, all three of them might not make the playoff.
That's crazy.
That you would have thought that's crazy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and and honestly, what's even crazier about that is what if Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Texas don't make the playoff?
That's crazy.
Because
Yeah,
that could
and
happen. It could be
preseason,
LSU, Georgia, Texas A&M, Missouri, and
Tennessee.
Vanderbilt or something like that. What
Dude,
are we doing?
I am on the Vanderbilt to the playoff train. Like I am so
What is so bad?
okay with that. Like I'm not that I think it's
Oh,
gonna happen.
Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee
Tennessee is
for
the one I
sure.
left out. So
Yeah,
Tennessee
Tennessee
makes
for
more
sure.
sense, actually.
Tennessee makes way more sense. However, Vanderbilt would be so much more fun. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. But yeah, but like you could literally have Texas, Texas A&M. I mean, you could have LSU, Texas A&M, Georgia, Tennessee, and then either Missouri or Vanderbilt as your fifth team, if there's a fifth team. I
Yeah,
think probably if that's how it shakes out, you only end up with four
I was gonna
from the
say the way
SEC. But
things are looking, I'm thinking four is the cap for the SEC right now. The way things
yeah,
are shaking out, I
yeah.
think
Well,
four is your
it
number.
just depends, man. It depends on who
Yeah,
those five teams are. Who's that fifth team? Because we've seen it before. Like Alabama shouldn't have been in there last year, but they got in.
it's true.
You guys should have been, and you didn't. But you were right there on the fringe where
Yep.
like you could have gotten that nod too. So, so moving on out of the SEC, we move on to a few big top 25 matchups. Number 20 Illinois travels to Eugene to face the Ducks. Three touchdown favorites. I think that's a bit much. Illinois has shown that they can hang around. They hung around a little bit with Penn State. Um, they got it done this weekend against a very mediocre Michigan team, but still they got it done. So it's just one to keep an eye on. I think Oregon should handle this one pretty well, but just want to keep an eye on. Another one that's interesting is Nebraska traveling to Columbus to face Ohio State. Also, well, a 3+ touchdown favorite is Ohio State. Ohio State should win this one running away, but I don't know. Was Nebraska overlooking Indiana
I
before this
mean,
game?
I don't know who the hell knows after that. 50 was it 56-7, 56-0, something
56 to
crazy.
7. Yeah, yeah.
That's insane. With Dylan Raiola, maybe you know what? Maybe he can stay in Nebraska. Maybe we never needed him to begin with. He
Yeah,
can stay
for
right
real.
where
You
he is.
see? Yeah, you were all worried about Carson Beck. Maybe they made the
Mhm.
right choice. Um, Notre Dame goes to the midshipmen. So do we think Navy has a chance here? Notre Dame's only favored by 11.5. I actually think Notre Dame probably wins this by 30. Navy hasn't played anybody yet, and I think we're about to start seeing. I'm all aboard the hype train for uh, the military academies. Like I get it. I love the idea that they're in the conversation. I just don't see it with Army and Navy. Like they haven't played anybody, and until I'm proven otherwise, I'm going to continue to fade them, especially against a team like Notre Dame that has been playing a lot better here recently.
Mhm. No, I like I think the idea is so dope that like
Yeah,
Army and Navy might have to play each other twice now this season for their conference
yeah,
championship and then
right,
for the actual Army Navy game, which I
right,
always thought it's kind of weird. It's like, it's always, when no other games are going on. But however,
right,
they now might have to play twice in 2 weeks.
right. Yeah, and so like if you lose both of those, are you just like done? And if you split, like does the committee look at that and say, do we count both of them or do we only
Yeah.
count one or how do you do
Yeah,
this?
I don't know because like you're gonna have one of them's gonna be the conference champion after if they do both
Yeah,
play, one of them's gonna be the conference championship champion for the game after. And I
right,
don't know where does the game get played then too? Because they always play in Philly, right, at the neutral
right.
site.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's a lot to think about. I think it's gonna either way. I think it's cool the service academies are at least balling this year, relatively speaking. And
Hmm.
but
Look,
yeah, we'll see. Notre Dame
it
has to
kind of
come to
reminds me.
Annapolis this
Yeah.
weekend, which I think is dope. I didn't realize that they were playing Annapolis this weekend. I work, or I
Hmm.
would have considered going to see this game.
Going to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, who knows? We'll see.
Well, one of the things that this kind of reminds me of is way back when. You're probably too young to remember this. You're definitely too young to remember this. But LSU, when we won the national championship in '03, USC claimed a part of that title because the AP voted them the national champion, even though there was a BCS system already. So like,
That's
there's supposed to be
crazy.
one champion. Like, you're not supposed to do this anymore. And but anyway, they did. So what happened was Oklahoma was so good that year that everybody was talking about, is this the best team in the history of college football?
Mm-hmm.
And then they even were saying like they deserve to be in the national championship no matter what, even if they lose the Big 12 championship. Well, they lost the Big 12 championship. I don't remember who the quarterback was for Kansas State, but Darren Sproles was the running
Mm-hmm.
back for Kansas State and ran all over them. And they blew up. Josh White was the quarterback.
Yep.
And like it was one of those, like, as soon as that was done, they were like, well, on second thought, um, maybe it did matter that they lost. And so then that's where the debate started to happen. It's like, well, nobody was saying that LSU shouldn't have been in the national championship. They were just saying that Oklahoma shouldn't have been. So then why are you giving USC a piece of the title when they didn't even
Yeah.
play in it?
Yeah.
Like, we won. We beat Oklahoma, and that was the team you said was the greatest team in the history of college football like a few weeks ago. Now
Yep.
all of a sudden, and then who did USC beat in the Rose Bowl? Like number 8 Michigan with John Navarre at quarterback, and they like rolled over and played dead for the whole second half, and they only won like 28-14, so it wasn't like they blew them out or anything like that.
Yeah.
But that the reason I'm bringing that up is because I feel like similar vibes where like Oklahoma heard so much of, it doesn't matter if you win this game, you're the greatest team ever, blah blah blah. The conference champion going and having to play a rematch the week after,
Yep.
how do you possibly motivate yourself to get up and go beat them again?
Yeah.
Unless it's a blowout. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
No, for real.
because on a certain level, you're like, yeah, we already did this. And that's kind of how I felt like LSU had that 2011 season. We had already beaten Alabama in Tuscaloosa in that huge overtime game that it was like the game of the century, whatever, number 1 versus number 2. And then we had to play them again for the national championships.
Yep.
Like, no, we already beat y'all. Why are we having to play y'all
Yeah.
again?
No, I hear you.
Give us somebody else. And so it's difficult to get the motivation up for
No,
that.
I agree. And given that the Army Navy game itself is such a
It's such a
big
bigger
deal
deal.
as
Yeah.
on its own, like as a
Hmm.
standalone game, last game of the season, it is
Right.
the game, the only game that weekend, and it means so much to those two teams because they are
Hmm.
essentially, once again, a part of the same team, right?
Right.
Once they graduate,
Yeah.
and like it, the president's there, and it's like it's a big, 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 big deal. So to
Hmm.
then have it be worth, their conference championship the week before, and then have to do all the glitz and glamour the week after. I don't know.
Right.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll have to keep eyes on the. Either way,
Yeah.
the military academy. Shout out to the troops, man. Regardless, shout out to the
You
troops.
make a good point because now I'm like, well, wait, so which one are they going to overlook more?
Right.
The Army Navy game or the conference championship
The
game?
Army Navy game and the Army Navy game.
Exactly. Like one of them's a big deal. The other one's a big deal. I don't know.
That's
What do
what
you
I
do?
mean. Like
It's
they're
so
big deals
bizarre.
for different reasons. I don't know,
Yeah,
man.
exactly. All right. So one that we thought was going to be a big deal, but it has turned out to be like the stupidest game ever. Like, what happened to Florida State, man? Like we were trolling them early on this year.
Now it's
I did
just
not think
sad,
they'd be 1-6.
dude. They're
Like this is
so
awful.
terrible.
They're
It's
so
bad.
bad. And Mike Norvell, they people were like talking about him like he was it, man. And now it's just like, yo, does it do this? Because it is terrible. Anyway, Miami should not be number 6, but they are, and they're 21-point favorites, and they really don't have any games going
Mhm.
forth the rest of the season until the ACC championship, where hopefully they will play Clemson, and then you'll actually get to see both of those teams play somebody besides Georgia, that is of consequence, where you're actually going to be able to measure that conference, against itself in a real way. Because so far, Miami has been tested, but not by good teams, by Louisville and Virginia Tech. So I have not been impressed. I love Cam Ward, but I'm not, I can't get behind a Heisman Trophy campaign when I think the ACC is serving an ACC championship game appearance to Miami on a silver platter with some of these late
It'll,
calls in
it'll
these games.
It'll be Miami Clemson for the ACC championship, most likely. And they don't play each other regular season. So at
Right.
least it'll be a fresh matchup when
Right.
eventually I think that it will happen, barring some like massive collapse by
Mm-hmm.
Miami. And I'm pretty sure Clemson is undefeated in the ACC as well. But they
Yeah, they're
only have to
both
loss to us,
undefeated.
right? That's what I
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah.
So if that holds on, I feel like it could actually end up for a decent championship game. And who knows, Clemson may sneak up and just beat Miami altogether. We'll have to see when that comes around. But yeah, this game is
Mm-hmm.
terrible. Miami beats Florida State by a lot.
Yeah, I agree. Boise State at UNLV.
Sneaky.
UNLV has been playing a lot better lately. They don't need that quarterback apparently. The kid
Dude.
who just quit. The kid who
Yeah,
just quit on
dude.
him.
Yeah, dude. Matthew Sluka is gone, but Haj Malik Williams is the leading
Yeah,
passer and rusher of the UNLV running Rebels
yeah, that's
so
right.
far
That's
this
right.
season.
Yeah, and Ashton Janty, after having a bye week to kind of rest those legs so he can get right back after it, and he only played a half the last time he played,
Which is
so he's had
crazy.
like a long time to rest those legs. So I'm looking for oh no, it was a couple of games ago that he had
Yeah.
186 and 3 tuds and a half. He actually played the whole game. The next one he had like 200 plus. But yeah, I mean, I'm expecting a big game out of Janty, and I expect Boise State to win this game, but this is not. This is a sneaky one.
It's in Vegas
Where
too.
yeah, going on the road and playing in Vegas is it's gonna be it'll be fun, and it's a Friday night game, so it's like all eyes are gonna be on that game. Penn State at Wisconsin. Luke Fickell's got the Badgers playing a lot better here lately, and Penn State comes in only a touchdown favorite. How do you feel about this? Like, is Penn State legit at
I
number
don't
three,
know. I
or should
think
they really
probably
be like
not.
7, 8, 9, and they're just like playing over
They
their
should,
heads right now?
they should be back where they belong. They are the ever present 8th seed in the college football
Right.
rankings. The 8 through 10 is where they live.
Yeah.
Like let's be for real, folks. I mean, here's what I think. I think they escape this one. Um, and it could be by whatever margin. I think that yes, Luke Fickell has Wisconsin looking better, but I hope that Penn State does not overlook Wisconsin because it's entirely possible for them to do so. You know, like as it stands right now, we have 4 teams in the Big Ten. Uh, you have it's Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, and Indiana. So we'll
Indiana, yeah.
see. But this is a interesting spot for Penn State because the week after they have to host Ohio State. So that you cannot overlook going to
Trap spot.
Wisconsin. It's a very trap spot. I would say
Mhm.
trap spot. But I think that maybe Penn State might win this by a field goal or by 14. I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah.
kind of like where we're sitting. But I think Penn State does go, hopefully, into Wisconsin and win to set up a game against Ohio State the week after.
Yeah, I mean, it's your standard, turnovers and
Yeah.
big plays kind of thing is going to
Yep.
be like the difference between
Mhm.
whether it's a one possession game late where Wisconsin has a chance to either hold off and preserve a win, or maybe put a drive together and come back and tie it up or take the lead, or it could be something where Penn State makes a couple of big plays, gets a pick six or
That's
something,
a
a scoop
night
and
game
score.
too. That's a night
Yeah,
game too.
and so it's and yeah, Wisconsin, that
Camp
place
Randall,
at
right?
night, not easy. Yeah.
Yep.
So Kansas State, this would have seemed like a better matchup earlier on in the year, but Kansas has been playing terribly, and Kansas State has actually been playing really well. I have Kansas State as like one of my like sneaky teams that I think is very overlooked. I think they're a quality team, and I don't like what I've been seeing out of Kansas. They did get a win this weekend that I had slept on them, and so I was a little surprised by that. But this 10.5 points may be a little bit too tight. I think Kansas State probably wins this one running
Mhm.
away. But it is a huge rivalry, and that's one of the things. Like as we get to this point of the season, so many of these rivalry games start to come in where like you throw everything out and the spread doesn't matter and it's just like blood and guts.
Yep.
So SMU Duke, another
Gross.
ACC matchup where like we talked about all those other ACC teams, but there's still these other teams that either don't belong in the ACC or shouldn't be good in the ACC, and there's still some possibilities. So SMU travels to Duke. I didn't put the spread on this one. I don't remember what it was. I don't care, but it's just one for us to all keep our eyes on
Yeah.
because it is a game that has some playoff-ish type of implications, and that's what we were getting at with this whole regular season doesn't matter versus it does matter discussion. Is that you have this depth now of there's so many more games, so many more teams where one win here or there could be the difference between you getting in and not getting in. And then even some of it starts to trickle down into like you're watching some of these games just because you played one of these teams earlier
Yep.
and you want the schedule strength boost
Mhm.
from them winning. So I've been watching that with UCLA and USC and South Alabama
Mhm.
because when you have the SEC, it's kind of this, I don't want to say incestual, but it's like a cannibalism
Yeah.
thing where like everybody just beats up on each other, and so
Yep.
you can't really learn anything from like your strength of schedule that
Nah.
way. But your stuff out of conference, you kind of can, and so you definitely want to root for those teams because it's hard to root. If Arkansas is playing South Carolina, who do I root for? We played both of them, beat both of them. Like
Right.
I don't know,
For sure.
whoever wins wins. But
Mhm.
when UCLA plays Rutgers, I'm like, good job UCLA.
Good job.
So yeah, exactly. That was good stuff. And never forget that if we ever do have to, look at the transitive property of college football, the transitive triangle reminds us that LSU is the best team in the SEC. I don't have anything to show that Texas A&M might be better than us, but we are at least right now sitting at the top of that triangle because we beat Arkansas. Arkansas beat Tennessee. Tennessee beat Alabama. Alabama beat Georgia, and then Georgia beat Texas. So that means we're better than all of those teams.
It's true.
And we also beat Ole Miss. We also beat South Carolina, and they beat teams that would fall under this umbrella as well. So like we're just the best team in the SEC. I don't know. Texas A&M hasn't lost to anybody in the SEC yet, so this is really it. Like we really have to
Mhm.
to play it on the field. LSU, Texas A&M is going to be the battle for
Yep.
SEC supremacy this weekend, and let's hope the Tigers can go get it done. And
Yes, sir.
Georgia, you guys get to just sit back and
Listen,
watch all
man.
the chaos unfold.
Yes, sir. And listen,
Must be
and
nice.
the collision course for Atlanta for the South End Zone could be on. If you
Let's
guys
go.
can beat, if you guys can beat Texas A&M, and maybe they drop one. I don't know where the tie. If you guys end up being the only undefeated team, and like we have and the rest are one loss or worse, who knows, man? We could see. We could have a. Hopefully, we could sneak in there. We'll see. But the
That's
collision
right.
course for the South End Zone and the Conference Championship Atlanta could be on.
There you go. And look, if you want to send us money so that if this actually does happen, we can go do a live show from Atlanta, from Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Then we'll put our cash apps somewhere, I guess, or something, so that Tyler can fly down from Pennsylvania to Atlanta, and I can drive over there, and we can afford to get tickets to actually go to the game. Because that would be, dude, that would be so epic.
That'd
We
be
we were
awesome.
doing the show a couple of years ago when we both went to the SEC championship, and we didn't do it like it didn't have the implications. I think
Mm.
we would have probably tried to make it happen if it meant that like LSU winning gets us into the playoff. But once we
Yep.
coughed that one up to A&M, which that sucks. Like, why am I being reminded of losing a game in College Station right now? Dang. Come on, Tigers, get it done. Let's go. But
Yep.
yes, please don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe. Give us your comments. Um, Texas sucks. Alabama sucks. Go ahead and throw the hatred at us for those verbal barbs. And until next time, I'm Chad. He is Tyler. The South End Zone. We'll be back again. But we're out for now. See y'all. Peace.